Galloping Goose is the popular name given to a series of 7 railcars, officially designated as motors by the railroad, built in the 1930s by the Rio Grande Southern Railroad, RGS, and operated until the end of service on the line in the early 1950s. Originally running steam locomotives on narrow-gauge railways, the perpetually struggling RGS developed the first of the geese as a way to stave off bankruptcy and keep its contract to run mail to towns in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. There was not enough passenger or cargo income to justify continuing the expensive steam train service at then current levels, but it was believed that a downsized railway would return to profitability. The steam trains would transport heavy cargo and peak passenger loads, but motors would handle lighter loads. Motors were not only less expensive to operate, but were also significantly lighter, thus reducing impact on the rails and roadbeds. This cost-saving meant that the first Goose was paid off and making a profit within 3 weeks of going into service. RGS built more geese and operated them until the company abandoned their right-of-way in 1952. History. The RGS built its first motor in 1913 as a track maintenance crew vehicle. This was wrecked in 1925, but inspired the idea of using motors for scheduled service. All of the geese were built in the railroad shops at Ridgeway, Colorado. The first was built in 1931 from the body of a Buick Master 6 four-door sedan. It was more conventional in its construction than the later geese, though it had a 2-axle truck in place of the front axle. Part of the rear of the car was replaced by a truck stake bed for carrying freight and mail. This was later enclosed and partially fitted with seating. It was used for 2 years to carry passengers, U.S. mail, and light freight before being scrapped. A second Goose was built in the same year from another Buick, but later versions used Pierce Arrow bodies except for number 6, which was constructed partly out of parts taken from the scrapped number 1. No. 2 and No. 6 were constructed with 2 trucks, with the rear truck powered on both axles. Number 2 had an enclosed freight compartment, like a very short boxcar, while number 6 had an open bed similar to number 1, but larger. It was used only for work train service. The other 4 had 3 trucks and were articulated in the same manner as a tractor-trailer truck. In these, the second truck was powered, and the freight compartment was essentially a conventional boxcar. Initially, the geese were painted in black and dark green. In 1935 they were all painted in a silver scheme which they retain to this day, though the style of lettering and heralds changed over the years. In 1945, number 3, number 4, and number 5 were rebuilt with Wayne bus bodies, at least the front half, replacing the old Pierce Arrow bodies. This provided more passenger seating and comfort. A year later they also received new war surplus GMC engines. In 1950, when the railroad finally lost its mail contract in favor of highway mail carriers, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 7 were converted for tourist operations, and the Galloping Goose name was officially recognized by the railroad. Large windows were cut in the sides of the freight compartments, and seating was added. A figure of a running goose and the words Galloping Goose were added to the car body doors. This service lasted only 2 years, and the last work of the geese on their home line was to take up the rails. It is unclear exactly where the name of Galloping Goose comes from. It is mostly commonly suggested that it referred to the way the car body and the freight compartment tended to rock back and forth on the line's sometimes precarious track. It is also suggested, though, that the name arose because the geese were equipped with air horns rather than the whistles of the steam locomotives. The name was used informally for years before the tourist operations, though the railroad officially referred to the units as motors. A similar unit was built for the San Cristobal Railroad, and was rebuilt by RGS in 1934-35. When the San Cristobal folded in 1939, this unit was returned to the RGS Railroad and dismantled, with some parts going to rebuild and maintain Goose No. 2. The Galloping Goose Regional Trail on Vancouver Island was named after a similar unit that ran on the Vancouver Island section of the Canadian National Railway from 1922 to 1931. Galloping Goose No. 5, along with many local landmarks, was popularized in C.W. McCall's song, Gallopin' Goose. Surviving units. Of the 7 geese, only No. 1 does not survive. The replica was built in 2000 for the Ridgeway Railroad Museum. The other 6 are located as follows. Geese No. 2, No. 6, and No. 7 are preserved at the Colorado Railroad Museum and are operational. Goose No. 3 was sold to Knott's Berry Farm and is operated regularly during off-season periods when park attendance is low. Goose No. 4 was on static display in Telluride, Colorado. It was restored to operation in Ridgeway, Colorado, as of June 2012. With the restoration of Goose No. 4, all of the geese are now operable. Goose No. 4 was moved back to Telluride on May 2013. Goose No. 5 was bought by the city of Dolores, Colorado. After restoration in 1998, it is now operated from time to time on the Cum-Brazen Toltec and Durango and Silverton tourist railroads, as well as at the Colorado Railroad Museum Gallery. Driving Rio Grande Southern Goose No. 7. Galloping Goose Historical Society of Dolores, Colorado. Colorado Railroad Museum, Rio Grande Southern Galloping Goose. Denver Post article. Galloping Goose June 2012 Golden Railroad Museum Reunion.